Both America and Russia are pressuring Kyiv to give up Donbas. This is their shared demand for ending the war. President Zelensky stated that both Washington and Moscow say, for the war to end tomorrow, Ukraine must withdraw from Donetsk region.
Volodymyr Fesenko is joining us. Mr. Volodymyr, hello.
Good afternoon.
It seems to me that we could start any of our conversations with this issue. They are pressuring us, saying that we must leave Donbas. We say, no, we cannot leave Donbas because firstly, how can we leave? Well, to leave Donbas is to leave ourselves essentially. Yes, if we put it in terms that are clear to all of us, so many people have fallen for Donbas, forgive me, since 2014. And there is so much that is important and so many important people there that this story, cannot be painless for anyone who lives in Ukraine or cares about Ukraine. Do you think that in the negotiation track there could be any other demands besides leave Donbas because we want you to? Because Russia definitely does not want to create a gray zone. Because Russia definitely does not want to create a controlled buffer zone or something like that. This is territory for occupation. It's obvious.
No, well, Russia's goal is to occupy as much Ukrainian territory as possible. Moreover, that's not their only goal. They want much more. They want to change the political system in Ukraine to restore Russian control over Ukraine again and so on. That's why it's not just about the fact that many people have died for Donbas. By the way, people have died not only for Donbas, but also for other territories. The problem is that we're talking about unilateral concessions that do not guarantee an end to the war. And if we voluntarily agree to withdraw our troops from Donbas, then the next step from Russia will be the same demands regarding Zaporizhia and Kherson. Let me remind you, Russia has officially incorporated them into its territory and has no intention of giving them up. That is why the Americans believe, and I believe, that this is a huge mistake on their part, or it is simply turning a blind eye to the real problem, thinking that this way the war can be ended. But we cannot make concessions, because this is not the end of the war, it is a devious maneuver on Russia's part. Regarding the negotiation process. In negotiations, just like in war, sometimes you have to hold your ground. Hold your ground so that later perhaps you can go on the counteroffensive or change the military situation. It's the same here. Yes, there is pressure. Is this the first time Ukraine has faced pressure? Let me remind you that during the negotiations on the resource agreement, the pressure from the US was much greater, much greater. They stopped. We were cut off from weapons supplies and intelligence sharing. In this case, well, Trump wants things to happen quickly and at any cost. Yes, well, formally this is supposed to look like a compromise, and he believes that after this, Russia will stop. But there are absolutely no guarantees of that. And most importantly, this does not look like a compromise. It looks like a unilateral concession. So this could be the first serious crisis in the current negotiation format. But this is not the first, and who knows, maybe not the last negotiation format. And it can definitely be said that this is far from the last round of negotiations. So the negotiations will continue, and this is only the beginning of the negotiation process. And in order for the situation at the negotiations to change, first of all, stabilization of the front line is needed. When both the Russians and the Americans understand that the military situation is completely stalemated, that it will not change, and that Russia cannot win this war. Then the attitude toward negotiations will be different, especially on the Russian side. Maybe not immediately, but inevitably it will change. The second important point. It is necessary to change the very framework of the negotiations. If the focus is placed primarily on the territorial issue, then a negotiation crisis and a deadlock are simply inevitable. The negotiations will be doomed to fail. We need to reach agreements on those issues where agreement is possible. And the Americans need to be reminded that the negotiations began a year ago, precisely with the American demand, which we supported, that the key, the main instrument, the main way to end the war is a ceasefire. And a compromise formula was found. First, a complete and comprehensive ceasefire for 30 days, then an extension. A phased ceasefire is also a possible option. In March of last year, this option was also discussed. There are options for getting the negotiations out of a deadlock. So yes, right now the negotiations are essentially stalling. They are heading, maybe not yet finally, but they have entered or are entering a dead end. And this needs to be frankly communicated to our American partners. They are putting pressure on us because here too there is an important nuance, perhaps purely tactical. Perhaps right now there will be a change of tactics on our side. They are pressuring us because we are ready for compromises. Throughout the entire negotiation process, we have demonstrated our willingness to compromise. We thought that the Americans would understand that we are ready to negotiate, but Russia is not. And therefore, they would realize that they need to put pressure on Russia. But the Americans started behaving completely differently. Well, since we are agreeing to make concessions, let's put even more pressure on Ukraine, since they are willing to agree. Now, we need to say, enough. We have agreed to a lot of things. We have red lines that we will not cross. And the territorial issue is one of those red lines. We will not give anything away voluntarily, just like that, as a gift to Russia in exchange for who knows what. And then, I think, again, maybe not immediately, but the negotiations will change their nature.
Mr. Volodymyr, thank you for these clarifications. Volodymyr Fesenko, political scientist, was live with our studio via video link.